Ladies and gentlemen, and friends, the Baltimore Ravens.
Johnny Unitas needs 17 more to break Kittle's record as the all-time passer in the National Football League.
You all know that Lamar Jackson has serious star power. The Ravens have the best record in the league. He has a top selling.
Zappi. Oh, big fella touchdown. My goodness. Michael Pierce.
The Baltimore Ravens select Lamar Jackson.
Wow. This is the instincts. The God-given gives the awareness to go beat him to the punt.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Black Wing Playbook. You're here with the usual suspects, Coach Ward, Cordell Woodland, myself, and Michael Pierce isn't here at the moment. He may be popping in, so stay tuned. You know, the big man is always busy, so whenever he pops in, he'll grace us with his presence. But in the meantime, we got a lot of fun Ravens topics and conversations to talk about today. As you know, the off season is underway at the Castle. We got a new uniform unveil coming up, and the draft is right around the corner. So there's a lot of things to be excited about if you're a Ravens fan these days. And we're going to jump into it all. Fellas, real quick before we get into it, how you guys feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good. Appreciate it. I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. I'm chilling. You know me. Any day above ground, I'm always good, Matt.
Yes, sir. Well, let's start with the presser today. So Zay Flowers spoke, Mark Andrews spoke, Cordell, you were there. I believe the strength and conditioning coach spoke as well. Am I missing someone else? It was another player, right? There's three players.
Kyle Hamilton. You said
Kyle
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yes, Kyle Hamilton spoke. What was your biggest takeaways from the presser today? What was the energy like in the building, seeing all the guys back? Like, just what was your thoughts from inside the Castle?
Yeah, I mean, from pretty much everybody that spoke, it was the first time you heard from them since they moved on from Harbaugh. So it was definitely a lot to get to. As you would imagine, everybody had glowing things to say about their time with Harbaugh and how much they respect him and appreciate his time in Baltimore with them. But I think one of probably the biggest takeaway, and again, this is what you would expect at this time. We're still in the honeymoon phase, but everybody's excited, about what Kyle Hamilton called the new era of Ravens football. It's a new voice. John's been in Baltimore for 18 years. So it's a drastic change that the Ravens make, moving on from him and going to Jesse Minter. They bring in, a young coaching staff after moving on from a very experienced coaching staff outside of Zach Orr, but a lot of experienced defensive coaches on that side of the ball that were put in place to kind of help Zach Orr, just never really panned out. But yeah, I think a lot of guys are showed up excited to kind of get last year's bad taste out of their mouth, to kind of get the lay of the land, to see what's new in the building with all the new voices. But I think just talking to the guys that spoke today, it just seems like everybody is very optimistic and, excited about kind of the unknown, right? It's a lot of unknown with this Ravens staff right now. And it seems like these guys like that because people get excited to a degree with the unknowns. It can make you a little antsy and nervous, but at the same time, even those are elements of excitement. And I think that's what guys are. That's where they're at right now. Again, it's still the honeymoon phase. They just got back in the building this week, but they're still learning their coaches. So I think that's what's exciting them right now, getting to grow these new connections and relationships with these guys, learn their expectations. Zay was talking very highly of Declan Doyle in a presentation that the coaches had on Monday, and he called it an explosive offense. That's what he's expecting this offense to look like this year. So I just think guys are just happy to get back around each other, happy to be back in the building, and happy to meet the new leader.
Yes, sir. Coach, what was your thoughts about just today's presser, taking it in, watching it? What was your thoughts? Takeaways?
I loved it. I loved everything. I mean, but it was kind of expected too, because like Cordero alluded to, it's new energy, new staff. You want to kind of get off on a good impression, or the right foot first off when you first come in contact with your new coaching staff and whatnot. And then the other thing I liked about it is how involved these coaches are early. And it's not just Jesse Mentor, it's the position coaches, it's the strength and conditioning coaches. It's so many different coaches that are new, and then they're welcoming, the players in the atmosphere around the Baltimore Ravens. So for me, I think the coach involvement is more shocking to me than the players, because I kind of expected it from the players. I've been a part of a new regime change and whatnot, not to the NFL level, but I do understand, like, hey, a lot of people antennas are up because they want to see, hey, okay, what is these coaches are going to demand of me? What does it look like when I make a mistake? Are they going to still coach me up the same way as if they're coaching me up right now when there are no mistakes to be made? So I love that particular part of the presser itself. And I just hope it stays this way for as long as it can, because right now this new energy can push players into stratospheres they never thought they could be in. So
absolutely, it's exciting. I think when you think about what has transpired over the last 4 to 5 years, I think change was so necessary, because you can kind of see in certain moments during the season, players would just get this look on their face of like, here we go again, right? And I think that comes from the complacency and the redundancy that they had started to experience. Even they couldn't even put words to it. Like a couple of guys did interviews last year, Odafe Owe before the season, a couple of guys like I think Trenton Simpson, and they were asked questions like, why does the fourth quarter, letdowns keep happening? Why do you got, what is this bugaboo with the playoffs? And they just like, I don't know what it is. We get to that moment and then it's like, oh, deja vu all over again. And I think bringing in a new voice, a new coaching staff, some new faces, that kind of takes away that here we go again, feeling. It takes away that, it's just a matter of time, because they looking around, they saying, hold on, these guys are coaching different. These guys are leading different. They're talking different. It's not the same situation. We're not sitting there staring at each other wondering what's going to happen. You're going to have some new voices, and hopefully that creates a change in the season and in the postseason. So Zay Flowers, popular conversation during the offseason about his contract after JSN got an extension. A lot of that, became a big thing. Okay, well, Zay Flowers, same draft class. He's expected to be next up. He spoke today about being a leader in the wide receiver room and taking on a more of a veteran leadership role. So I'm going to play that clip here, and then we'll give our thoughts on what Zay had to say.
I feel it like taking more of a leadership this year, taking more of a leadership step, because the past few years we had vets, so it was easier for the vets to take over because they already did what I'm trying to do. So now that we might not have a vet, or I might be one of the oldest in the room, I got to take that next step and be that leader.
All right, so love to hear that from Zay. Love the kind of, he what's this, year 4 for him now? So like that time has gone by fast, right? I feel like he just got drafted, but now year 4, and all this talk about, you hear amongst the flock, bring D-Hop back and bring in this older guy now. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, okay, hold on. Bateman's going into year 6. Zay is in year 4. Why can't these guys be veterans? Why can't these guys be the leaders of the wide receiver room? Cordell, what was your thoughts about Zay kind of owning that when it comes to the leadership role in the wide receiver room? And could this have an impact on the draft? Do we think that the Ravens could go early wide receiver here instead of, adding a veteran like they usually do, maybe adding another young guy for these older guys now, Zay and Bateman, to kind of take more of a leadership role? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I feel like DaCosta has kind of flirted with that idea in the past when we talked to him this offseason about the wide receiver position. So it definitely wouldn't surprise me. Depending on how the board falls for them, that could be best player available for them. And wide receiver is kind of a need. Pass catcher in general I think is a need for them. We're talking about them potentially getting 2 more tight ends, at least 2 more tight ends, and then also adding to their receiver room. So yeah, I still think that's a huge possibility. But I'm Zay talking about being a leader. That's great. That's great. He's the best receiver on the team, and I'm not one of the people that believes that because you're the best that you're supposed to be the leader. Like I used to have that discussion years ago back in the day about Carmelo Anthony, and I remember there was a whole big thing about Melo, his leadership being questioned, and this idea that in sports, whoever's your best player has to be the leader. And people forget leadership comes in different forms. If you're the best player, by nature, you're leading by example with your play, on the field. You're setting the standard. So that's a form of leadership right there. But I think everybody looks at leadership as this rah-rah guy, this guy that's going to hold people accountable and,
Ray Lewis.
Yeah, like being this preacher type, this loud guy that's going to come in and be the authority in the room. And that's not necessarily, everybody doesn't accept that type of leadership all the time. You got to meet people where they are. So, Zay's going to figure out what way works for him. But I think the best way that he could lead is really by his play. His production has gone up year after year. His consistency, his attention to detail, like his preparation throughout the week. That's the way that I think Zay should be the leader. I don't envision Zay being this guy that's up in teammates' faces and, going viral for that. I just don't. I mean, he's a fiery guy. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that that's. And who knows how it goes, but I don't see it being that way. I think for Zay, it's really leading by how he practices, how he plays, how he prepares, and I think across the board, the attention to detail for the Ravens is going to be key this year. I think that's one of the huge differences between them coming through in the big games and in the big moments of the year and them ultimately falling on their faces the way that they have.
Great point, Coach. So how big of a year is it this year for Zay Flowers and Bateman to kind of take on more of a leadership role and also carry the room from a production standpoint and from a leadership standpoint? Because behind those guys, you have Tez Walker, super young player going into year 3, I think. You have LeJontay Wester going into his 2nd year, super young player. And they're probably going to bring in another rookie or 2. All of a sudden, you look at it, and Bateman is the elder statesman in the room, and he's still trying to find his way as far as his role on the team and his importance to the team. How important of a year is it for those two guys, Zay and Bateman? Obviously, Zay going into a contract year, and Bateman trying to establish himself as a legit receiver in the NFL for the Ravens.
It's huge, man. It's huge because we know like the NFL is a pass happy league already, right? And we also, as fans, we are looking for new leaders to develop, to establish themselves. They don't even have to say it. Just say, look, this is the person that we're going to follow. Whether we follow them into a dark room or we follow them on the field on Sundays or whatnot, you need that because football, the more successful programs or organizations they have the leadership from the players more than the coaches. It's good to have a coach there, but at some point, the coach is going to become tone deaf or the message is not going to resonate with everybody, right? And then the other thing is you own your particular organization with the players because there's more players than coaches. So it's more players than coaches. Now, if you guys got that consistent message about accountability, people leading by example, those are the teams that usually do well because I don't need the coach come to yell at me and curse me out and tell me how bad I did. I feel like I'm letting down my brother. I feel like I'm letting down my leader, right? Because I'm not going out there doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm making, dumb decisions with the football and whatnot. So again, I absolutely love this from Zay Flowers. I just hope somebody else would do it on all the different rooms, whether it come from the linebackers, the D linemen, every position group that they have, they need to have this type of leadership that announce themselves and say, hey, look, you know what? this is what I'm planning on doing, and I plan on going out and leading by example. Because if you have that, now we know, hey, look, the messages is out there about, hey, look, this is what the Ravens are missing, and I feel like Zay did that to this day. He did that. So,
Phil says that rewatching that game gives me heartburn. The Buffalo Ravens Week 1 game, man. What a high and low in that game, right? We started off so great. I mean, you're like, we're back. D Hop's making one-hand catches. Derrick Henry's running through defenses like a hot knife through butter. Lamar's looking great, and then and we went from that high of thinking, oh, this could be the year, to the low of like, no way, they just blew another fourth quarter lead. And that was really setting the tone for the rest of the season, because if you watched after that game, you saw that it was over with. Like their mentalities was like they accepted, like, this is who we are. We're a good team, but we fold in pressure moments, and they just accepted it. It almost felt like it. If they could beat a team pretty quickly and blow them out like Cleveland or a lesser team, they do it. But if it was a hard-fought match and it was the other team was just as good, it felt like it was inevitable. So Cordell kind of touched on it earlier. Mark Andrews is the only true receiving threat in the tight end room. And so expect them to probably add a tight end or two through the draft. Obviously, they've been poking around David Njoku. David Njoku, let me ask both of you guys, would you rather the Ravens go with a rookie early in the draft, rather round 1, 2, or 3, or sign David Njoku, who is 30 years old, around the same age as Mark Andrews? Which one is the better fit in your opinions?
I mean, it would depend on, who it is. If we're talking about them getting Sadiq, I mean, I would probably, he's going to be cheaper, most likely. Well, it depends on if you're getting him in the first round. I don't know. I don't know what David Njoku's contract would look like right now, but I mean, you get somebody with the upside, not as much wear and tear. Njoku has a lot of that. But you don't have the guy that has played in the AFC North. You don't have a guy that has been a focal point in the offense that he's been in. You don't have a guy that's played in playoff games. So, yeah, I mean, it's pros and cons to either side. But I think there's a reason they haven't pulled the trigger on David Njoku yet. They did their work. That's a guy that if he is brought in, it'll probably be after the draft. So I don't really think that they're going to look at Njoku as somebody that's necessarily going to influence how they approach the tight end position in the draft. I think they have their board and they're going to go off of their board, let the draft dictate how they operate. But I don't think that they're going to approach how they draft these tight ends based off Njoku. At least I don't think that they should. I mean, Njoku's still out there. Even if you do bring him in, you don't know how long he'll be able to actually play, how many games you'll have him for. And I mean, Mark might still end up being your best tight end. Whereas with Sadiq, he could end up passing Mark in his first season if they use him, right? So, yeah, I mean, the upside, I think, is more so with a guy like Sadiq, but obviously the more known commodity would come with Njoku.
Yeah. Coach, different question for you. Do you think Njoku and Mark Andrews can coexist together? They're both used to being tight end one. And how would that work? We've seen Mark have issues when other weapons are added to the mix, and how he's used to being the guy, and he has shown that he has trouble sometimes adjusting to a role in which he's not the focal point. Could Mark and Njoku coexist together?
Yes, and I'm gonna tell you why. The system allows that to happen, right? If we look at the Chicago Bears, I know it was Ben Johnson, but if they have that same type of system, that system is designed to feed multiple targets in multiple areas on the field. And if we do it, we go through our progressions and we read it properly and it's executed properly, I think naturally the ball should get distributed. Probably not evenly distributed, but it should get distributed to different layers on the field and different spots. So yes, the answer, to that should be 100% unequivocally yes. They should be able to coexist because of the system. And we've seen it to where, hey, some of the plays were called when both of these guys, Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews on the field. It kind of looked at some point like it was jumbled up. I believe with the Ben Johnson system, it's going to be a little bit different when Declan Doyle has his way with the offense. So,
all right. Well, so speaking of Declan Doyle and speaking of Mark Andrews, Mark Andrews spoke about his new OC today at the presser, and here's what he had to say.
There's a lot of growing for me to do and just learning, him, but just being around him from the few short days, he seems like an incredibly dynamic person. Fiery, loves football. He said he prides himself on being a teacher, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Being in that type of job is being a teacher. That's really the most important thing, is being able to relay his message and get it across to us. And just these last few days, done a really good job of it.
All right, so obviously, Jesse Minter, when he brought in the staff, one of the things he kept honing in on or kept mentioning was he wanted connectors. He wanted guys who were teachers. Mark Andrews speaks about this in that clip about Declan's ability as a teacher, or his want to be a teacher. Cordell, what was your thoughts about his response in that way? And do you think a teacher like Declan Doyle is like, this is probably what they needed in your mind?
I think it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. I talked about their lack of attention to detail. I think Declan Doyle, him being a teacher, him kind of being just football or nothing, I think he's definitely going to do that. But I remember when Todd Monken came in and his first practice as an OC for the Ravens, and I remember saying, like, I can hear him. I actually hear him on the field, and didn't hear Greg Roman at all during practices. But Todd Monken, immediately, you heard him. You saw his impact. You saw him going from position group to position group. You saw him if somebody did a rep, even in individuals, and he didn't like it, he would go over there and say something. So I don't think this is going to necessarily be new for them in the aspect of having a coach that's going to be on them about that type of stuff. But maybe Declan Doyle's approach is different. And Mark is a very he's very focused. He's very focused. He's a guy that gives all that he's got in practice. I'll say that. Mark isn't a dude that's taking reps off in practice. So I think Declan Doyle is right up his alley. I think Mark is somebody that's going to appreciate the way that I would imagine Declan Doyle is as a coach. We don't know yet, and Mark has said it there. I mean, they just met him on Monday, so they're very early in the learning each other stages right now. But I think everybody's excited just about the unknown. Even they're in the first phase of even the off-season workout. So this is strictly the strength and conditioning stuff. As they get into phase 2 and are able to get on the field and start to do a little bit of the install and all of that stuff, I think then they'll have a better understanding of, how these coaches really operate on a daily basis.
Coach, your thoughts?
Everything sounds great. I love it that it's sounding like that. There's the two things that, as a teacher, especially as a coach, I have to have a Q&A period to where, like, hey, if players are not getting what my message is, they have to have a time to where, even if it's just 5 minutes, hey, get clarification of how to do something and whatnot. And then the second part to the teaching is, hey, we need to have a check on learning on the field. So, for instance, if I'm telling you, hey, these are the things of how we're going to do something, if we come out and we see this type of look, or we come out and we get this, these are the things we're going to do. And they all essentially become mini coaches and they figure it out without me saying anything. So right then and there, if they have those two elements to the teaching part of it, I think this works, very, very, very well for the Ravens offensively because it's one thing to teach and just tell people what to do, but and it's a whole nother monster when you start to empower them and let them figure it out. Like, hey, look, we got these looks, we went through it. These are what our checks are, so forth and so on. Because when you start to do that, now we can move further along in the install.
Absolutely.
I would also add in there, with Doyle being a teacher, in the case of having a Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, there's going to be, and I hear Declan Doyle saying that he's a teacher. I think there's also a really good coach also understands you got to learn your players too. So my hope is that Declan Doyle is flexible, because you almost have to be when you coach a Lamar Jackson. And I get it. He was just coaching Caleb Williams, who plays off script a lot, has a lot of oh no, oh yes moments himself, but Lamar's different in that aspect. And we always hear receivers and guys talk about how Lamar sees the game and how he always engages with them based off of what he's seeing, and they have to learn how Lamar sees it. So that's the marriage of this. That's why I said it's all good now. We really have to see how it is once they're actually on the field and going through the plays, actually going through the scheme, so that they can figure out, okay, what's the gray area? How far off script am I okay with him going? How flexible am I going to allow him to be? Like that's the real part of this, that if this is going to work, that whole marriage between Lamar and Declan Doyle, and Lamar's creativity mess with Declan Doyle's creativity, like what does that look like? Because everybody's going to have to be flexible on both ends. That goes for Lamar too. Maybe he's got to be a little bit more structured than he's used to being on the field. So there's going to be some give and take on both sides. That's really what I'm intrigued by. Like, okay, what does that formula look like? How much is Lamar giving? How much is Declan giving? How much leeway is actually passed off in this situation?
No, that's a great point. Great point. Because obviously, Mentor is the head coach, but Declan Doyle probably has the most important job on the staff, right? Which is getting Lamar Jackson, a relationship with Lamar Jackson, and then getting that offense running and clicking in the way that he wants it, in the way he envisions it, in the way that it works for everybody. Because that, I feel like obviously the defense, that defense has to be fixed, and I think it will be. And I think they will be better under Mentor, but I also think that they're only going to go as far as the offense can take them. They're going to go as far as Lamar Jackson and his right arm and his feet can take them. And the faster they can create chemistry and get this offense to the way that they want it to be, the faster they can hit the ground running when the season begins. So to continue, so Kyle Hamilton also spoke today. Speaking of the defensive side, he was asked a few interesting questions and he gave some funny answers. Kyle, man, I love Kyle. Never changed, bro. He talked about he was chilling playing video games when he found out Harbs was exiled, and he mentioned Harbs took all the players with him, and so that was funny. But he was also asked a question about his new teammate Trey Hendrickson and his thoughts about Trey Hendrickson and the expectations of him joining the team, and this is what he had to say.
Quarterback a lot, and I think he's just going to continue being a great player. Obviously, I've never played against him physically one-on-one, but just watching from the sideline, disruptive edge rushers, like, they get paid so much for a reason. They impact the game so much and impact the offense and kind of strike fear into the offense's playbook, really just kind of handicap it. And I think he's one of those guys, and rising tide raises all boats. So the more attention he gets, the more one-on-ones Mike Green might have on the other side and Trav inside, and all those other guys can get to the quarterback too. So it's kind of a domino effect in that, but definitely happy to have him.
All right, thoughts, Coach. You kick it off.
I loved it, especially with the quote "rising tide raises boats." For me, that screams, "Hey, we're watching to the left and right of us, and we're seeing what other players are doing, and we want to elevate to that." So if that's going to be the message, without Trey Hendrickson wearing the leadership mantra, I'm absolutely loving it because that means, hey, look, we're seeing what this guy is able to do, and we want to come to the party. We want to arrive to the party and not just come to the party. We want to contribute to it as well. And when you start to get that without people giving rah-rah speeches, I just believe that's where you start to maximize, because now people are, hey, look, we don't need any external motivation. We got all the internal motivation. And when you start to do that, really, really special things start to happen to an organization. So,
yeah, I mean, I think obviously Trey Hendrickson helps elevate the Ravens defense, right? I mean, he immediately impacts the weakest point of the defense, which is the pass rush. You hope that he can have that level of production. I don't know if anybody's banking on him having 17 and a half sacks this year, but to get you, they're expecting double digits. I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. That's got to be at least the least of what you're looking for out of Trey Hendrickson. And you are, like Kyle said, you hope it's a domino effect. You hope with Trey Hendrickson getting a lot of attention, that allows Mike Green to win his one-on-ones. It helps Travis Jones on the inside. If he gets going, he's tough to block one-on-one. I'm intrigued to see what this does with their blitzes, what this means for Kyle, because in my mind, if Trey Hendrickson is getting double teamed and now, you send Kyle Hamilton on a delayed blitz off that same side, or, right in between the nose tackle and Hendrickson, like Kyle in a one-on-one situation coming from 5 yards off the ball against a guard, I probably like that. So I want to see how they use Trey Hendrickson to help elevate everybody else. He doesn't have to be the only one getting to the quarterback. How does this make your blitzes more effective? How does this make some of the other guys who are getting the one-on-ones, are they winning those one-on-ones? We've seen Ravens pass rushers get one-on-ones in the past. There hasn't been anybody here that they need to double team, especially this past year when Matabike went down. Who was getting double teamed, really? So, it's guys still have to win those one-on-ones. And I think when you have the thing about sports, when there's somebody on your team that's playing at a high level, it should usually, for at least the good players, it makes you want to play at a higher level as well. So hopefully if Trey is able to come in and right away, he's making an impact, getting after the quarterback. I mean, those are momentum changing plays in itself, but hopefully that's just something that becomes contagious to everybody else, to where now everybody starts to get the itch to want to make some plays too.
Yeah, 100%. Love the thought of like what Mike did with Kyle and how Jesse and Mike are so similar. And so thinking about the different ways Kyle Hamilton will be utilized in his defense, as well as bringing in someone like Jalen Hawkins, who I thought was just a really good, underrated signing. He's got some length back there. He's got some coverage ability. He's a strong tackler. He's smart, instinctive. I think he's the perfect third safety to add between Starks and Hamilton. He's kind of a hybrid, a middle ground of both guys, I guess what you should say. He's not the fly around, throw himself around guy that Darius Washington was, but I think that was kind of to Darius's detriment, which is why Darius had a hard time staying healthy. I think if Darius could stay healthy, I think the Ravens would have done everything they could to keep him, because he was that valuable. Or maybe he would have just gotten paid by somebody else, because if Darius stays healthy, he's probably a Pro Bowl safety. So, but getting someone like Jalen Hawkins, I thought that was really, really big for them. Just thinking about what they're going to utilize, how they're going to utilize them. And then we heard from strength and conditioning coach. He spoke about Nnamdi Madubuike and how strong he looked and how healthy he looked as far as just from an athletic standpoint. Cordell, what was your thoughts about that response and did you feel like you got a little more information than you had been in the past?
Not really. I mean, he's not going to give much. Nobody in there is really going to say much when it comes to Nnamdi, as expected. I mean, but there does seem to be this growing optimism that he hasn't played his last football. So, I think that they have to approach it as if they don't have him, because even if you do, what does that Nnamdi look like? And you got to be prepared just for the worst. I mean, sad to say it, but that's their job. It's their job to be prepared for every situation, because if Nnamdi doesn't come back, nobody's going to give them the excuse of losing him. They have an off season now to not. I mean, they're not going to be able to make up Nnamdi's production in one off season. But you can do things to help make that blow a little softer. So yeah, I mean, he's still working. We've seen the videos. They've talked about that, and he's still around the guys, it seems like. But yeah, I think they're going to, keep that message, the same message as, they don't know what the future holds for Nnamdi Madubuike, at least until he comes out publicly and says something himself.
Yeah, Coach.
Yeah, I know they have to be careful, or saying the right things and whatnot. But the Ravens, I would almost guarantee they got an idea of where he is, right? And it's just, hey, look, I got to protect the player, I got to protect us. I can't say anything too crazy to the media, because if it does, we're talking about violations of HIPAA, we're talking about all kind of stuff. So for me, I'm on the same lines as Cordell here. We want to, hey, look, we want to prepare as if we're not going to have him, and then if we do have him, that's a plus, right? And then the other part to this is, I still believe, even if he gives you the blessing of, hey, I'm closer to 100%, I still want to create a rotation, because we've seen what that rotation looks like come January, right? If we're sitting there saying, hey, look, the Ravens want to make a deep run, the teams that had a defensive rotation have always done the best. When it comes down to, hey, look, I need to generate pass rush. Yeah, I got some guys that can play 80, 90% of the snaps, but why do I have to do that? Why should I do it if I don't have to? If that makes sense. If I'm going to get a guy that's going to come in, and I got a bunch of guys that teetering around the 5 to 7 sacks a year, I think that's a great recipe to have, because now we're sitting here saying, hey, look, offensive coordinator, you got to prepare for all 4 or 5 guys that I'm going to send at you, because either one of them can get home to the quarterback. So,
yeah, great point. Loving the additions that the team has made. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson, Madubuike is going to be a big chip, right? That's going to either fall or, if he is healthy and he can play, lights out, right? This defense is going to be scary, because to me, the last few years, the Ravens' issue hasn't been talent, right? It hasn't been talent. They got as much talent as anyone in the NFL on both sides of the ball. The issue has been execution, right? It's been situational play calling. It's been the utilization of personnel on the field in the right ways, and knowing when to utilize guys and when not to utilize guys, and what combination of personnel to use. It always felt like they just didn't understand, how to use these guys, and that was always fascinating to me. I'm like, these guys are paid professional coaches, and they never seemed like they could figure out, how to utilize these players, right? So it's gonna be interesting, and I can't wait to see how things go this season, because this is a big year, and and for me, the expectations. Well, let me ask you guys, because I know what my thoughts are. Coach, I'll start with you. What is the expectation for this season? Mike, Jesse mentored year one. Is it Super Bowl bust? or
I
you give
would-
him grace as a rookie
I
coach?
wouldn't go that far. It would be unfair to put Super Bowl or bust on him.
Mhm.
But I can almost assure you.
Well, maybe not just him, but just in general for the team. If they don't,
for the team, minimal the division. We got to take back the division because how we lost it. That's the other thing. Like if we would have went down and we were 0-6 in the division and we didn't have a chance to win it, I feel like, hey, you know what? We can be like, all right, man, let's get back to 500, right? But that wasn't the case, right? We had a chance at the division, at a playoff, and then, oh yeah, by the way, we lost both games to one of our division rivals. So I think those two things, if I'm a coach, I'm circling those two things first and foremost. Hey, we got to take back the division, and we cannot go 0-2 to anybody in our division. We just can't do it. Because if you're not doing that, like I feel like, hey, you're not preparing your team to not only win the division, but also go into other teams' home and beat them. Because if we don't do that, we're basically saying, hey, look, we're handicapped to either on the road or all our games got to be at the house because that's where we're going to play better. I believe if you're going to do this, the Ravens have to prepare to be able to go into Philadelphia and win a game or whoever they play. I believe that has to happen because if not, we're sitting there saying, hey, look, yeah, we win one game, but then we're going to be sitting back at the house. So I feel like, hey, we start with the division, and then the other one is, hey, I can't lose both games to a division opponent.
Cordell, what's your thoughts of what should be the expectations for the Ravens this year?
It's tough for me to say just because, it's still so much time left in the off season and roster construction and stuff of that nature. But like Coach said, I think it does start with the division. And look, I try to tell people all the time, and I get it. Pittsburgh's roster it's been a long time since Pittsburgh has had an elite roster. But you don't need an elite roster to win the AFC North. We've seen it over and over again. There's a style of play in this division that works for the teams in this division, and not everybody has the same style. And Pittsburgh, man, they probably have the ugliest style out of anybody, but it works for them. They always find a way, no matter who's at quarterback, no matter how lacking the roster may seem, like they're always there. And so I think one thing that the Ravens can definitely learn from Pittsburgh, and I'm hoping that this new regime does bring in, is just the ability to keep fighting. I mean, the Ravens used to be known for the bullies. They have lost that bully mantra. They're no longer the bullies. Until shown otherwise, they're not the bullies. You got Marlon before the start of the season talking about how nobody in the division was afraid of the Ravens anymore. And then we go and see how the season unfolds. I think they have to get back to this us against them mentality. They don't have that anymore. They've lost it somewhere along the way. And I think the ability to not just win games when you're scoring 40 a game or when you're blowing teams out by 20, while they have issues closing teams out, they also have had some issues when it's a little bit of that tug of war, that back and forth. They seem to be the first ones to blink. And that's something that I think they got to change. So I'm looking for, my expectation is for the Ravens to kind of clean up some of these messy tendencies that they've had. These tendencies to roll over, these tendencies to give up, these tendencies to blow these leads, all of that stuff, because John's gone. Nobody can hide behind John no more. We can't post the John memes anymore when they blow a fourth quarter lead. He's gone. It's a new leadership group in town. Cool. These players, they've got to go out there and do it. But I am looking for the coaches to kind of get that aggression back with this. We were talking about the Ravens defense struggling to tackle a month into the season this year. That's that's not the Baltimore Ravens. So go get your identity back. Is number one, and number two, yeah, go compete with your division. Go win your division. I think they're probably, even as the roster sits today, they're still probably the most talented team on paper in the division. But again, that doesn't mean anything. You can't, like Coach said, you can't get swept by the Steelers. It can't happen. It can't happen. You can't have these. If the Browns are going to be the Browns, treat them as such. Go beat up on the Browns, like at least once. Give me one blowout of the Browns this year. That'd be nice. Like I just want to see differences with the Ravens in terms of like where their season ends. I don't really know how they're. Right. I mean, we still have a lot of questions about Kansas City. What 15 looks like for them carries a lot of weight into how the rest of the AFC can dream that year. So
right.
I think this is obviously a playoff team, but how deep in the playoffs can they go? I'm not sure yet.
No, that's a great point. They got to get. I love what you said. They have to get their identity back. Like who are you? Right? Like you've been living off this reputation that you didn't create. Right? Think about it. Today's Ravens kind of came into the situation with the reputation of the old Ravens, right? So that bully mentality, that reputation that Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs and Bower and all of, they established that reputation long ago. And then teams after that continue to maintain it, but you've watched it slip year in and year out, especially after the last guys left, like Suggs. After Suggs left in 2018, you really started to see it slip because he was the last of the old guard to kind of bridge the gap together, so to speak, of, hey, this is how we did it. This is how we built that play like a Raven mantra. This is how we created that culture, and this is what you guys have to do to continue it. Once he was gone, it felt like, well, the new guys kind of wanted to create their own thing, but wanted to still also live off the reputation of the old. And you got to create your own. It's like when Kyle said last year the Ravens fans were spoiled. I think where he misunderstood is that, yeah, they are spoiled, but they aren't spoiled by this iteration of the Ravens. They're spoiled over the 2 Super Bowls that they won in a few short years. They're spoiled by Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and those guys who were taking us to AFC Championship games back to back to back, when at that time we didn't even really have an elite quarterback, right? We were winning championships without one, and now we have one. It's hard for fans to sit there and say, well, we finally got a one-of-one type of quarterback. Why are we having more problems now than we did when we had no quarterback? And so obviously it's a different time. It's a different era. The NFL is different. Things have changed. You can't win today the way you used to win back then. I do understand that, but it's time for this group to create their own legacy, create their own. Who are you going to be as the Ravens going forward, and not what they used to be? Go ahead.
My bad. I didn't want to cut you off. I did want to respond to the Nation where I saw a comment about
this one.
Players of today's game, don't have that type of bully mentality, and I don't totally disagree with that. And if you want to generalize, but you watch that Seattle defense, they got that. You watch Cleveland's defense, they got that, and that's a losing team. That's a losing team. How often is Cleveland playing with the lead this year? That defense arguably might have been the best defense in football this year, in my opinion, at least. I mean, them dudes, if they could ever get a lead, what are you going to do against them? So I do think there are certain defenses that you can still find that aggression and that bully mentality. And at times Pittsburgh still shows it, at least in there. I don't know if they play with that. I don't think they play with that level of production on a weekly basis, but I do think that's who they are at their core. They're still taught that. At least they were with Tomlin. They were still taught that. They just didn't always execute it. But defenses like Cleveland and Seattle, man, every week, offenses had to buckle up their chin straps.
Yeah, they wasn't playing. They wasn't playing. And then, I don't know if you guys heard this, but apparently when Mike McDonald first got to Seattle, he took all of the Legion of Boom stuff off the walls. He took all of it down. Anything that had any semblance to what the Seahawks used to be, he took it down. He said, that's not who we are now. We got to create who we're going to be. We got to create a new. That's what they did. But what y'all gonna do? Let's get your pictures up. Let's take Richard Sherman down and Marshawn Lynch and Cam Chancellor. Let's take those guys down and let's put Devon Witherspoon up there, right? Let's get some of the. What are you guys going to do? Because we walk in and we see the legacy, but it's like, what is the present going to do to add to that legacy of the Seahawks? And I love that. It kind of got a lot of controversy when he first did it, because it's like, who is this guy coming in, first time head coach, taking down the stuff that Pete Carroll built, putting his feet up on the desk saying this is the new sheriff in town. And you see what happened. He won a Super Bowl in his second year because he's like, we can't keep living off the past. And I think the Ravens have had an issue when it came to and I think it's because Harbaugh, the connection of him being there from 2008 and being a part of that. I think he always kept it in their minds of telling the stories of what we used to do and what we used to be. And, because he was there. Well, these younger coaches, Jesse wasn't there. He don't know what it was like in 2012. He don't know what it was like in 2008. All he can speak about is now, right? And how do we create something new now? And I do like the idea of this, Coach.
So I love that you brought that up, and I love that Cordell talked about this question. So I get what that particular person was saying, but you got to keep that hunger on the defensive side. If you don't keep that hunger on the defensive side, what's going to happen? You're going to get passive aggressive. And when you get passive aggressive and playing defense, we all know how that looks. I'm waiting to tackle the person. I'm not trying to dissect the play. I don't have no edge to me. I'm coming off the ball half mass. I'm not doing anything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not reading anything. I'm not checking anything. And that's where you end up allowing the team that should be a 50-point blowout. Now you're in a shootout with that team because you don't have that hunger. And I think that's what Mike did when he removed all that. Hey, you don't have no identity, right? You don't have no established legacy, right? You're not a part of this historic Seattle team or whatnot. Here's your chance to go create your history, right? And I feel like on the defensive side, you got to do that, especially now because the game is more tailored to the offensive players, right? Mm-hmm. And then they like to celebrate. They do dances and all that good stuff. At some point, you got to get ticked off and say, "Hey, look, no, not today." Mm-hmm. You're not gritty and up and down my field, especially on my home field. Hell to the no, I can't let you do it.
They took down the Legion of Boom so the dark side could go up, right? Because that's the name of Seattle's new defense is the dark side. But if the dark side was always reminded of the Legion of Boom, they would try to live up to that expectation. No, create your own legacy. And I think you've seen some of the players fall into that trap, like because of John was there with both sides, he's trying to bridge the gap and say, look, this is how we used to do it, and I think one player in particular to me got caught up in that, and that's Roquan Smith. I feel like Roquan got caught up in trying to be Ray Lewis too much instead of just being Roquan Smith, right? Like you felt like naturally when he first came in, he just came in and was like, I'm just Roquan Smith coming from the Bears. I'm just going to play hard. But then he started to evolve in that second season, and you started to see him talk more. You started to see the speeches and the things, and he had to sit down with Ray when they're going through the film, and then you again you got John. There's that constant reminder of what used to be, and obviously Ray still looms large in that building because he's sitting up in the press box with the owner during game days, and he's coming through to speak to the team. So it's like Roquan's like, okay, if I want to be a middle linebacker for the Ravens, I got to be that guy. I got to be Ray Lewis. I got to find a way to do what he did. What did he do? He gave speeches. He did all this rah-rah stuff. No, Roquan, just be you. Be you. Be the thing that got you drafted from Georgia. Be the thing that made you an All-Pro or Pro Bowler when you were at Chicago. And be the thing that the reason why they traded for you and the success you had early with the Ravens when he first got here. When he got here with Mike McDonald, it was just like, bro, I got a job for you, and I just need you to do it the best of your ability. Patrick Queen's going to be beside you. He's going to see ball, get ball, but you just go out there and you just do your thing, and don't be Ray Lewis, right? don't look at that, right? Yes, he got a statue in front of the doggone stadium, but but pay it no mind. Try to be you, because Ray didn't become Ray trying to be somebody else. He was Ray. That was authentic. That was natural. So I think when Roe gets to that point where he's just naturally being himself, and I'm not saying he's not being himself, but when he takes away that pressure of having to live up to that, I think he can just go out there and just play ball. The same thing happens with Kyle. I mean, the first thing the media did when he got drafted was compare him to Ed Reed. They had him do a call, the call with Ed Reed, after he got to the building, after getting drafted. And it's like, do we really want to keep flashing Ed Reed in this kid's face? That's a hell of an expectation to try to live up to. Yes, he knows. I mean, when you think about the Ravens, you think about Ed Reed, Ray Lewis. These guys are aware of these players. But, like, do we want to keep, reminding them constantly of what you're living up to? Because that's hard. And it is human nature. But yeah, so really quick, switching gears here. So Declan Doyle, I spoke earlier, is it's a huge part of what the Ravens are going to be this year is based on Declan Doyle. So we're going to do something real quick called Coach's Corner, and he's going to break down some Chicago Bears film from last season and kind of talk about how this could translate to the Ravens offense. Coach, I'll hit play, and then the floor is yours.
Cool. All right. So hold on. Pause it real quick. So first things first is you see the tight end that was in the fullback position, and then he motions out, right? The other thing is you see this kind of staggered lineman out here, number 79, it looks like, right? He is eligible for a pass, right? Because he's off the line of scrimmage and he's not covered up by anybody, right? So I think having that type of formation, and we can use anybody we want in these particular spots, right? The reason why I love this type of offense is because he's basically set by having this formation. I'm utilizing every part of the field, not just one or two spots, right? And I'm assuming once he snapped the ball, this guy that's eligible down here on the bottom of the screen is going to do something, whether it's pass blocking, whether it's going for a route, whatever it may be, and then they're gonna put that on film. Once they put that on film, like I said, once they put that on film, now you got a game plan for it, right? And the beautiful part about this is, as you see, they got the offsides from the defense. That puts that defense in a bind because they haven't seen that. They're used to the wide receivers doing it, but they're not used to a tight end doing it when you already got a tight end on one side already. So right here, again, you see 79 run in motion, right? And then look at the 49ers defense. Let's see what the 49er defense does. All right, and play. All right, so first tight end goes over. They give him the attention that he needs. All right, cornerback, like I got him. Now here comes 79. No movement from the only thing they did was that linebacker that was on the side where 79 was. All he did was step back, right? But then guess what? No communication to the other side. Hey, I just had a guy come from the tight end spot. He's now over there with you guys. It should have been an adjustment by the cornerback to take number one, whoever the number one receiver was, and then go from there. And so having this, that's why I believe having as many wide receiver options or guys that can catch the ball, and it don't have to be pure wide receivers or X or Z. It can be a lineman that can catch the ball because, again, we don't know what it looks like when it comes down to, hey, look, I want to throw this guy the ball. Like, for instance, 85, that could be Mark Andrews, no harm, no foul. And then this particular lineman could be, hey, a guy that was a converted tight end, whoever it may be. Again, these guys are eligible for passes. So now we put a new wrinkle out there. So now guess what? If you put that new wrinkle on film, now we're sitting here saying, hey, team got to prepare for it. As you can see, the edge rusher right here, he just chucked the number 79 in the face when he went out for a pass. But if they're not prepared for it, this is what happens. They doubled number 79. So again, that's a wrinkle that we're talking about when we get Declan Doyle's offense installed and we do everything we're supposed to be doing. So the tight end position I think is very, very important. because as you guys seen, these guys are going to move around a lot. And then just by them moving around, that's the difference between them and his offense and Monken's offense. They move around a lot, but they don't take themselves out of the play. If they move around at times in Monken's offense, sometimes they got lined up, and then it was lined up to where they was covered. It was called covered up. So now they're not eligible for a pass. They can't go out for a pass. So that's huge when it comes down to the Declan Door style of offense. Those guys moving around, but they're also going to stay eligible, and that means the defense got a game plan for them. And again, if we get the right tight ends like a David Njoku and the Mark Andrews mix, now we're sitting here saying these guys are matchup nightmares already for the defense. So imagine if number 79 was David Njoku. Now we're sitting there saying, hey, oh, wait a minute, I can't just let him run up the field. So now they're going to give him the attention. And now that outside number receiver in this case is DJ Moore, I think it is, number 2 on the right. Yeah, so in this case, it'd be DJ Moore. He gets a one-on-one matchup with the linebacker because the tight end got that particular warrant, that extra defensive hat. So I believe, again, if we get the right tight end packaging, whether it's a rookie or whether it's David Njoku, I just want us to have guys that are comfortable catching passes, whether it be short and intermediate or not running down the field. That's all I want, because I know for a fact, like, hey, this particular passing offense can be elite, probably one of the top ones in the NFL if we do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I noticed is a lot of misdirection, a lot of so you get a lot of misdirection, you get a lot of motion, coach, and so you can imagine Zay Flowers coming in motion. You can imagine Bateman coming in motion. But one thing I noticed a lot about this offense is that the tight ends motion a lot, right? So Mark Andrews coming in motion, and rather that be, this is why I do like the idea of a Kenyon Sadiq, because Kenyon Sadiq is so much more than the tight end. He's a dude. If you go watch Oregon, they would line him up in the backfield. They would line him off the line, on the line, in the slot, outside. There's so many things you can do with him. I think when you factor in what a Sadiq could do in this offense, with the motions, with the things, the eye candy, pre-snap with Zay Flowers, and it felt like with Monken, it just became. I knew Zay Flowers was tired, bro, but he would run him in motion all game, and he would be the only motion guy. He would just be motion back and forth, and I'm like, man, before the snap start, Zay is going to be worn out because he only motion one guy. With Declan, you can see that they motion multiple guys. They motion tight ends. They will motion a tackle who's off the line as an eligible receiver. They will motion the slot guy. You see this? This is what's his name? Colston Loveland motioning, finding the soft zone in the middle of the field. I think obviously Caleb should have got rid of that. He should have threw it a little sooner. But then look, this offense has a lot of built-in second plays, which Lamar thrives in, and I think that would be absolutely fantastic to be able to get an offense like that where the off-script stuff is kind of built in, Coach.
Yeah, and the other piece to this is nothing against the Chicago Bears running backs and nothing like that, but we got Derrick Henry. So now we start to spread people out and move people around. You lighten the box, right? If you lighten this box, and we're talking, 5-on-6 instead of 5-on-7 when it comes down to O-line to D-line and linebackers. If we get those matchups, we're talking a gash of a play. Like, look right now in the middle of the field, like I got it. Nobody's there. But look, if that's Derrick Henry down there, because that's the one that running back. If that's Derrick Henry, I love that, because now I know if I get them to flowing upfield, I can just dump it to him, and good luck trying to tackle him once he gets going, right? So again, I love the fact that they move everybody around on multiple different type of formations, and it doesn't matter if they're in the boundary or if they're in the field, they still can move people around. So
right. And some like tidbits for people. If you want to watch film of a team and you're just trying to get a feel for the offense, look at the formations. Don't pay attention to the results, right? Like, the results don't really matter, right? Like, whether he completed the pass or not, that's not important. Look at the formations. Look at the tendencies of what they do with their receivers as far as motion, how they align their tackles and their guards, and then also just pay attention of just like the different formations they come in and out of. So that's more important. I know some people kind of try to look at results, think, oh, they didn't complete the pass. That's not important. When you're watching film, you're not really looking for results. You're looking for formation and tendencies. And so when you watch this offense, you see a lot of eye candy pre-snap, but you also see a lot of creativity, which at times last year the Ravens didn't show a lot of creativity. Like I can almost predict every play because it was predictable. They didn't get very creative. So, Coach.
Yeah. So if you go back, rewind a little bit, this is what I was talking about just a few seconds ago. That we're in the boundary here to the right, and look what happened. We motion it to the boundary. And when you motion it to the boundary, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get a lot of defensive adjustments because most of the time the defense is saying, "Hey, look, we don't think they're going to go there because the wide side of the field is to the left." But watch what happens when he motions. Wide receiver motions over.
By the way, 81 here. That's Ravens' new tight end, Durham Smythe. So as you can see, Declan brought over some familiarity from Chicago.
So watch it. So he motions, right? But then look at the mic. He just take one step over, but then guess what I get? I got a puller, 58 coming right up the gap. Again, I like my chances with Derrick Henry in this particular play.
Oh, for sure. For sure. If that's Derrick Henry, it's probably a lot longer run here. Did you see? Hold on real quick. Did you guys see that? DJ Moore signaled to Luther Burden on that pre-snap. Pay attention to this. Watch number 2 here. DJ Moore. Watch him. See, it's little things you're looking for like that. Just little tendencies, little signaling, little things like that. Formations. He was obviously signaling to Luther Burden that it was time to come in motion. Instead of having the quarterback do it, like sometimes you'll see the quarterback goes set, and then he'll like call the receiver in motion. But then that kind of lets the team know that the defense know, oh, he's bringing them in motion, as opposed to, oh, this dude just went in motion. We didn't see the signal.
And then the other part about it is I like the blocking assignments. Like look down at the bottom. Rewind that one, my man. Look at particularly the 2 tight ends on the bottom right here, on the left, right? Watch how they don't block the same guy. Watch how he finds work. Left tight end finds work, and then the right tight end is like, all right, nobody's coming. Cool, let me advance to the next guy. So the little small things like that matters because now if our quarterback is playing off script, we're putting a hat on a hat, and then now it's, hey, I get automatically in open field, but one-on-one with the secondary player. If we get one-on-one with the secondary player, I like my chances with Derrick Henry or even Lamar Jackson.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna switch over to any questions you guys have. This is our Q&A. Cordell had to go and he had to do another show on the radio, 105.7. I know a lot of you guys follow him, so you know that he's a busy guy. But this is a Q&A part of the show. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat so that we can feature him here on the show and then we can answer them for you. But yeah, man, so a lot to be excited about. I actually tweeted out the other day, like, you should be excited about this upcoming season. I mean, the Ravens are unveiling a new uniform, right? Which is super exciting. I mean, when the last time the Ravens got like a legit new uniform layout, not like a purple rising or like a color rush. I'm talking about like a legit new set of uniforms. So you got a new coaching staff. You have new uniforms. You have the NFL draft around the corner. So you're going to have new players. If you're not excited about, as a Raven fan right now, then I don't really know what you're looking for. I don't know if you're really a Ravens fan at this point. Because if you're a fan, there's so much to be excited about, Coach.
Yeah, and just to hit a little bit on that, I love the concepts that people are producing on Twitter. I haven't seen much on Instagram or Facebook, but keep those concepts coming because look, you know, how cool would it be for you to create a concept and it's similar to what the Ravens produce, right? The other thing is too, I think it piques people's interest of what they want to do. Like we all throw those little jokes out there, like they're bringing the mustards back and all this other stuff. Like, look, I don't want to see no mustards. I'm being honest with you, right? But keep the concepts coming because again, you know, like I said, what if the thing that you draw up is close to what the Ravens do? The other thing about it is I love the fact that they don't want to lose the roots of how the Ravens started versus what the Ravens are. So they're trying to tie everything in together. And as long as they do something like that and they don't do anything super crazy, I'm all for it because it's just like you said, you know, we've been, you know, decades without a new uniform. So I think it's time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm excited about what they're going to come up with. I've seen a lot of the different fan creations. I don't know. I try not to get too caught up into that. I've seen some that look pretty cool, but it's probably not going to be the design. But it'd be interesting. And Sashi was funny, man. they spoke to him at the owners meeting. He was like, well, we'll have no information for you on this. And, you know, when I find out, you guys will know. Da, 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 and whole time this was already way cooked up. So, so it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be exciting to see what they can add. Looking at the chat, do you feel traumatized by last year's guard so badly that positional value and BPA isn't even a talking point? Well, we've talked about guards on this show a lot. I don't know if you just started watching, but we've talked about guards quite a bit. For me, in my opinion, I think John Simpson was a big pickup. He's 28 years old, going into his prime, and he plays some really good football. Yes, he got to clean up on the penalties, but that is, I'd rather deal with a guy who has to clean up penalties than a guy who just can't block. You know what I'm saying? And I think adding John Simpson, Emory Jones, who's a third-round pick, who was a highly thought of offensive lineman coming out of last year's draft, him going into year 2, not being injured, not having to recover from labrum surgery, not having to rehab, but actually train. And for those who don't understand the difference, there's a difference between rehabbing and actually training for your job, right? When you're rehabbing, you're not getting stronger, you're not training, you're just trying to get whatever injury you have healed and ready to the point where you can utilize it. This year, he's working out fully. He is getting stronger. He's working on his craft. And I think he's going to be a big part of next year's offense. You heard Jesse Minter speak about him at the owners meeting. I think he'll be involved, and they're going to give him every opportunity to start. And he has to just go out there and earn it, obviously. But he's going to have the opportunities. And then obviously they're going to draft somebody that's going to come in. And if that person's good enough to unseat Emory Jones or John Simpson, then great. If they're not, then you have another guy that you can continue to mold and develop. And that way, when John Simpson does eventually move on, you plug him in, and now Emory Jones and whatever rookie you get, those are your guards for the future. I'm not concerned about the guard position. I think the Daniel Falele thing last year had people overreacting and emphasizing how bad it was when it really was just, I thought it was poor coaching. And I spoke about this earlier, Coach, the decisions to not change certain personnel when it was clear that the personnel wasn't working. That felt like a decision, right? It felt like no matter how bad this is going, we're not changing it. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that was a huge reason why they needed to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, it was to the point to where non-football people were realizing like he was unplayable at times, right? And if a player becomes unplayable, they need to know that. Like, hey, look, all right, man, you're not giving us nothing. And if it's a series or two or a game or multiple games, then that player needs that wake-up call, right? Because again, the other thing is to this, that's not your $100 million quarterback. That's a player that, hey, look, okay, for lack of better terms, you're replaceable. We can put somebody in your spot. Right?
Exactly.
So again, that was a head scratching move to continue to do that, and to the point to where we got Myles Garrett lining up in the inside on us.
Yeah.
Because they know he's barbecue chicken.
You remember the 2024 season, week 1 against the Chiefs, where Chris Jones literally was moving wherever he went. He was like moving guys out of the way, like, no, I want him. I mean, that was a clear sign, like, yo, you better get this guy some help or get him out of the game. And then he went out and they signed Kenyon Green, right? They signed Laken Tomlinson, and they didn't utilize either one of them. They didn't give not one of them a chance. And then when they put Emery in the game, they put him in for Voorhees instead of for later, when we could clearly see 77 was the biggest issue. Yes, Voorhees had some struggles, but so did Rosengard, and so did Ronnie, and so did Linderbaum. This is why I knew it was coaching. It's one thing to have one player regress, and you say, okay, that player just regressed. We need to figure something out. It's a whole nother thing when your entire offensive line regress all at the same time, all in one season. They all got worse.
Yeah, and then again, like we was talking a couple of episodes ago, losing Coach D was it sucked because it was like you didn't get a chance to replace him. You know what I'm saying? Not like do your due diligence. It was like, all right, this is the emergency fix, right? So, and I'm not going to sit here and bash the new coaches, but again, it's like when we talk about getting to know your players, how much buy-in did that new coach have? You know what I'm saying? Like because we can always say, do what your coaches say, but there's a immediate buy-in when I know, hey, this guy has my best interest, right? Or when I understand what the message is that's coming from, right? So I feel like, again, the Ravens fans got to see how intricate an offensive line can be when it comes down to the success of an offense or a team in general. Because without you're not able to get to the quarterback, or you're not able to protect the quarterback, your team looks significantly different, right? And then when teams realize you can't protect the quarterback or you can't get to the quarterback, now it's just, hey, look, just hang on until we can exploit them, and then once we can exploit them, now we're gonna take back that momentum.
Yep. Richardi 876 says, with the current signings and roster construction, does it make sense for us to go guard at 14? I've been saying this the whole time. I don't think they should. I think they went out and signed John Simpson immediately. Think about when they signed him, right? That tells you everything. They signed him within the first hour of free agency. Free agency, 4 p.m. starts, boom. 30 minutes later, we get a notification the Ravens have signed John Simpson. That was intentional. And I've been saying this the entire time. He was also handpicked by Leffert. Remember, at the time they signed Simpson, every free agent guard was available. Wyatt Teller, all these guys were available. He said he wanted John Simpson. And if you watch the Wired segment a couple weeks ago, they alluded to it. They showed a clip of where Leffert was like, you're the guy I wanted, right? This is the guy I want. EDC asked him, which one of these offensive guards in free agency do you want? Who's the guy that fits the system? And he said John Simpson. I love the way he plays, the physicality in the way he plays. His pass blocking is good. His run blocking is excellent. And yes, he has some penalty things to clean up, but we can fix that, right? Because that's a discipline thing, right? I think players only do what they can get away with. If coach is allowing you to get away with things, then you're going to get away with it. But if they own you, if they saying this is the standard and we create the standard and this is not going to be accepted, then guys clean up their act. So, and then you got Emory Jones in the 3rd round last year. You still got Voorhees on the roster, right? They brought in, speaking of Leffert, Jovan Gwynn, guard, center from South Carolina, from Atlanta Falcons. He's a guy that still I found a clip and I'll share it on the X later of when they drafted the Falcons drafted Jovan Gwynn. Leffert was like, they interviewed him and he was like, this is the guy I wanted. This is the guy. Like, he can be something great, and I just enjoy, he wanted him, right? So it's no coincidence that when Leffert leaves Atlanta, takes the Ravens job, Jovan Gwynn is a free agent in the same year, right? He just finished his rookie contract. Leffert goes and gets him and says, I want this guy with me. So that shows you that the coach really, really likes this guy, and he may factor into the competition as well. So I think people are forgetting this. They're only kind of looking at it, from this this micro level. Like you got to look at it like they're making the decisions they're making for a reason. And the Ravens never like to go into a draft hungry, so to speak. Like I always say, it's like going grocery shopping and you hungry. Everything looks good to you. You putting everything in the cart, right? Vega Ione looks like the best guard you've seen since Marshall Yonda because you dealt with 77 last year. But when you go out and you address different things in free agency, it allows you to go into the draft and truly take best player available. And I think that's what it should be. They should take the best player available, regardless of position, and a guy that can come in and give them some impact. Also, I do, before I give you, Coach, I do favor positional value at certain spots because, as we can see, guys get paid at the premium positions, and it's hard to retain those guys because the contracts are so expensive, especially when you got a $100 million quarterback. So guess what? You need to draft those positions, like wide receiver, like corner, like edge rusher, because these are positions that either never hit free agency, or when they do, they cost a lot of money. So you got to draft them, right? So that's my thought process on the coach.
Yeah. The more I think about it, it depends on how the board aligns.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get an immediate advantage, I'm on the side of trading back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the side of trading back just because, what you kind of alluded to, right? We have some pieces that I like on the defensive side and the offensive side. And I just feel like, hey, the sweet spot for us is going to be the second and third round. I just feel like that wholeheartedly. There's some pieces to where it's like, hey, look, even if they don't come in and play, a lot of snaps right now, in the future, now we set up for, hey, look, we can absorb a cap from Lamar Jackson and not have to break up our entire team because we can't pay everybody. So again, I'm along those lines of like, hey, look, if the right player is not there, that we felt like, hey, look, he's going to come in and give us what we were looking for. I'm cool with trading back and getting, two players that can contribute later on in the season.
So Charm City player Brandon says, my only issue with John Simpson signing is the fact that there were a lot better guards out there. So here's the thing, Brandon, better by name, yes, but by game, no. There were some guys who were more accomplished, yes, Wyatt Teller, Joe Batonio, guys like that who were more accomplished, right? But when you talk about where they are in their careers now, well, Batonio is retiring because he's like 35 years old. Wyatt Teller signed a 1-year deal, and he didn't get signed till late. If these other guys that were so much better, why did it take them so long to get signed, right? Why didn't they get big-time money? Look at their age, right? So just because someone has a bigger name doesn't mean they have a better game, right? Let's just keep that in mind. John Simpson was one of the best interior offensive linemen available in free agency. People didn't want to talk about him or acknowledge it because he was already here. We already had him. It's not new. It's not fresh. And people only want new things. They want fresh things. They want something that they never had. And so they didn't want to acknowledge the truth about John Simpson is that when you look at that list, he was one of the better ones. I mean, you had guys like Isaac Suamolo, you had Wyatt Teller, Joe Patonio, and then you have unproven guys like Zion Johnson. If he was what they thought he was going to be when they drafted him in the first round, the Chargers, that is, he'd still be on the team. They literally were looking for offensive linemen while letting their linemen go. Zion Johnson should still be playing for the Chargers, but he never lived up to that first round contract that he got, right? And then you look at other guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, talented player, always injured. Now, how much will we be killing EDC if he signs an often injured guard, and then we get to the season and he's often injured again, and then now we're sitting there playing backups and we're saying, well, why did we sign this guy? So I think all these things have to be taken into consideration. Just because someone has a bigger name doesn't mean they have a better game.
Yeah. The other thing about this is we're talking about fit here too. That's the other thing. Because like just because PFF says, you're one of the better guards, do you naturally fit with us? Is it going to be an uphill battle to where you don't get it until late, like week 8, right? So again, that's the other thing is like, we got to look at the totality of the player, not just the value, not just the name and whatnot. Because again, the other part to it is Ledford probably saying, hey, look, a lot of these guys that played in systems was 8 to 10 years. Now, how much of that they're going to have to unlearn and go by what I want to teach them? So I feel like, again, John Simpson was probably a sweet spot for Ledford. And I think that's what ultimately contributed to him landing back in Baltimore. So,
no, absolutely, coach. I mean, and then just the thoughts, like, right, like I found the clip of Coach Leffert talking about Jovan Gwynn, and I'm gonna play it, and then we're gonna get out of here. But I just wanted to show you, like, the coaches are picking the players, and they're telling you who they want, right? And if this guy that you like so much, if that's who they wanted, then that's what they would have gotten. And so in the draft, if they go out there and they don't take Vega, then that tells me that that's not what they wanted, and maybe somebody else is somebody that they're looking at. But here's the clip of Coach Leffert after selecting Jovan Gwynn.
I think you see a very tenacious player. I think you see a player that really plays hard. He really gets after it. He's a guy that is going to give you everything that he has.
You mentioned the word consistency. That's with his game too, and it's week in, week out.
And this is all about Jovan Gwynn, by the way.
Player. I mean, just the physically. I mean, you're good in the trenches in the SEC, week in and week out. And this guy consistently does it. Doesn't matter if guys are he's going up against obviously first, second round, third round draft picks week in, week out. And this guy stands out and he's not giving up and he's going to play through the whistle.
When things are happening fast on the field, how is he reacting to it? Does he look like he's slow in his reactions? Is it slowing him down at all? Are there penalties with his play? And you see him, you don't see those type of things affecting him. And when you talk to him, and just getting to know him and just talking football in that aspect, does a really good job with all that. So you feel really comfortable with it.
But they will talk about that player of the school. They're like, if there's one person that we trust, there's like, we want to go into the trenches with, it's Jovan. Like, that's that guy.
So listen, y'all. This is why we got to do research and not just look at names. That's always listen. And I said this, and we're gonna end it here, Coach. And you give us your closing remarks. Offensive linemen are different than skill position players. Some of the better players around the league are guys who started with other teams and they got into the league, they developed, and then they became starters other places. For example, Ben Powers was a guy the Ravens drafted, I think, in the 6th round. And, he didn't play his first 3 years, right? He started his last year with the Ravens, played really well, got a free agent contract with the Broncos, and has been starting ever since. Another guy I'll throw out there, Ben Bredesen, late round draft pick from Michigan, guard. He never played for the Ravens, never took a snap on the field. The Ravens traded him to the Giants for like a 5th round draft pick. He's been starting for the Giants ever since, right? John Simpson, for example, drafted in the 3rd round by the then Oakland Raiders. They had a lot going on. John Gruden, it just didn't work out. The Ravens pick up John Simpson off the streets. He has an unbelievable season in 2023. He goes and gets paid by the Jets, and he's a starter the last 2 years, and now he's coming back here and started again, right? And I can go on and on about guys that move around the league, and they start one place. They get a little development. They go to a better situation where it's a better scheme fit, and then they flourish. Because remember, the draft, the team picks you. You don't pick the team. So from a scheme fit standpoint, you may not have gone to that team that drafted you. You would have gone somewhere else because you feel like it would have been a better opportunity for you to showcase your talent. But this team wanted you. They drafted you. So now you got to make the best of it until you can get to a spot where you feel like this team brings out your best abilities. Make no mistakes about it. $27 million was a huge reason why Linderbaum left. The other reason is to be able to play in Kubiak's system, that outside zone system in which the Shanahans have cultivated for years. So don't get it twisted. Just because a guy started one place, didn't have great success, doesn't mean he can't go somewhere else and all of a sudden be a guy, right? I remember Brian McKinney, all those years in Minnesota, came to the Baltimore Ravens and won a Super Bowl, right? Matt Burke, all those years in Minnesota, come to Baltimore, he wins the Super Bowl. So that's my closing remarks. Don't just look at it like, well, unless a guy was drafted in the 1st round, he's not good. Or unless the guy was some big name guy, no, man. Offensive lineman ain't that way. Go back and look at Seattle. Their starting center in the Super Bowl was an undrafted free agent. Coach.
Yeah. Again, you know, when the Ravens are picking players, or even any team picking players, we can't look at it from our lens because we don't know what went on to take said player, whether it be in the draft, whether it be in free agency, whatever it may be. There's multiple layers that teams are doing to try and figure out, hey, does this work, right? And then we also got to save a little. That's the other thing too. Teams, people don't understand. The teams have to save a little bit of an emergency fund. So if something happens and I got to sign somebody, I got a little bit of wiggle room to pick somebody up off the street, right? June 1st is going to tell you guys a lot when it comes down to some of the teams that are going to let people go. Some of the teams are going to sign people that they didn't think they was going to sign, and somebody's going to come available. So right then and there, that's going to tell you if your team values a certain thing or a certain player, or there's a particular need at said positions. So wait till June 1st, and then we can get it all in the uproar about our team signing such player and whatnot. So
yeah, man. Hey, listen, if we needed a left tackle, I'll be way more concerned, and I'll be like, yeah, we need to take that in the first round because left tackles are hard to find. It's your quarterback's blind side. And again, that to me, it's more of a skilled position, the tackles, because you're on an island with some of the best pass rushers in the world. So you want your tackles to have a certain skill set. Interior, yes, interior is valuable. And Emory Hunt was on the Draft Nerd show with me and Coach yesterday, and he explained the value and importance of building up the interior offensive line because no quarterback likes pressure in their face, right? So, but if they taking care of the tackles, Stanley just re-signed last year. Rosengarten is a long-term starter, and you drafted Carson Benson, who will eventually be Ronnie Stanley's replacement. You just need to really the thing that everybody should be talking about is the replacement for Linderbaum. Because right now they don't have a real true replacement on the roster. They got guards. John Simpson, Emory Jones, Jovan Gwynn, Andrew Voorhees. You got guards. You have no center right now that you can feel confident in. So if anybody should be talking about any position, it should be center. And here's the thing, and I've said this for months. Coach, you can verify. This draft matches the Ravens' needs perfectly. The strengths of this draft happen to be at a position in which the Ravens also need help. You need a tight end. It's a great tight end class. You need a center. It's one of the best center classes I've seen. You would need an interior offensive lineman like a guard. It's one of the best guard groups I've ever seen, right? The D tackle position is really, really good, but it kind of starts to flame out after the first 3 rounds. And then edge rushers, the same way to me after like the first 2 days, it kind of fizzles out. But corners is strong. And I really do like those positions. And linebacker is unbelievable. And I think they do need a linebacker. Roquan may be gone next year. And Trenton Simpson is on the last year of his deal. And Buchanan's coming off an injury. So you do need another linebacker. And this is a great linebacking class. So I'll just leave you guys with that. This draft meets up with the needs of the Ravens so well. And then not to mention that I've been saying this is a floor raising draft, not necessarily a ceiling raising. So you're not going to get the superstars like you will next year and like years in the past where you just got these superstars going off the board in every round. I think this is more of a floor draft. This is a meat and potatoes draft. This is the guys that are going to fill valuable spots for your team that may not get the credit, but they're going to be doing yeoman's work for your team. Coach, final words.
Yeah. I'm excited for the draft as a whole because, again, there are some diamonds out there, and I just want to see how many of them are going to go get drafted, and then some of them may be steals for teams. So I'm happy for that. And, again, I got my eyes set on a couple of guys, and I think the Ravens should take a look at some of the guys because, again, we say we need that linebacker, but that linebacker don't need to be an immediate player right now. And there's some good ones late in the draft. There's some guys that can add to what we already got. For instance, I'll give you one, Harold Perkins out of LSU. Yeah, he's a little bit on the lighter side, but remember, if we're sitting there saying, hey, look, we got a guy that can scheme up players, he's a perfect guy to scheme up something to where we don't have to compromise the entire defense up front and he can get home. So a guy like that doesn't have a whole lot of draft buzz, that could be a guy say, hey, look, man, we get around 150. All right, cool. He ain't off the board yet. This is a guy we can bring in to help late in January get home to the quarterback. So
we're gonna finish up with these questions. I didn't see these first. So Afia says, so you're saying our starting center is most likely in the draft, Coach?
I wouldn't say that. I think it's a competition. I'll put it because if I'm the Ravens, it would be wise to have it as a competition. For instance, I know the Ravens probably not going to take a center at 14, right? so I'm saying, hey, it's a competition, right, between two players, Bullock and whoever the center would be, right? And then let's see what comes about of that, because even if we take let's say one of the better centers in the draft, Connor Lew, right? It's still going to be some kind of growing pains for him. What does that growing pain look like, right? And I don't want to just say, hey, look, because we picked you in the second round or the third round, you're automatically going to start. No, that to me, you'll be doing yourself a disservice. So I think you need to let those guys compete it out and then go from there.
Yeah, 100%. And then last question. There's some wide receivers projected in the second and third rounds, like Ted Hurst, Brazel, Malachi Fields. What do you guys think about those guys? Love Ted Hurst. I'm a big Ted Hurst guy. Draft Ted Hurst. That's my guy. Not as high on Brazel, not as high on Fields. I was at the Senior Bowl. I saw Fields up close and personal. Also saw Ted Hurst and interviewed both of them. And Ted Hurst he stood out to me. He showed that it doesn't matter that he played at Georgia State. No level is too big for him. I think he'll come in and be an instant impact for whatever offense drafts him. He just fits the mold. And he's exactly what the Ravens need in that room. He's different than everything else they have, right? You got Zay, you got Wester, you got Tez, you got Bateman. No one in that room looks like Ted Hurst. So, Coach.
Yeah. I'm echoing the same type of sentiment. I just feel like, again, the echelon that you want your wide receivers to be able to go to. I got speed guys. I got possession guys. I got guys that can win 50-50 balls. That dude can add to everything that you already have, right? For me, I'm thinking, hey, we're 3-by-1, whether it's in the boundary or it's not in the boundary, he can be on the outside. Either way it go, and it's a matchup problem. So I feel like having a Ted Hurst is like the next step, right?
Yep. 1 sec. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. If you have not already subscribed to Black Wing Playbook on YouTube, please do go to Black Wing Playbook, YouTube, subscribe. Make sure you share with your friends, repost the show on Twitter. Everything is appreciated. We appreciate you guys always tuning in with us. This is a fun show, and we'll get the fellas will be back next week. So we should have a full crew back next week. But this was really enjoyable, and we look forward to bringing you guys this every week. We're gonna do a partner show, or a co-show with our other show, Draft Nerds, for the draft. So it'll be a Black Wing Playbook Draft Nerds collaboration on the NFL draft. We will be airing the draft live here, right here on this channel, and we will have it broadcasted. We will have guests coming throughout the day and getting their thoughts about the picks that are coming in and what they're seeing. And it's a party, right? So just come on, bring your snacks, bring your drinks, bring your whatever, and come in and enjoy the draft with us. It's going to be a party, and we'll have a good time. So, see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, and friends, the Baltimore Ravens.
Johnny Unitas needs 17 more to break Kittle's record as the all-time passer in the National Football League.
We all know that Lamar Jackson has serious star power. The Ravens have the best record in the league. He has a top selling.
Zappy. Oh, big fat touchdown. My goodness. Michael Pierce.
The Baltimore Ravens select Lamar Jackson.
Wow. This is the instincts. The God-given gives the awareness to go beat him to the punt.
Good show, Coach.